Conventions of the thriller genre. This part of the video is split up into 3 specific questions. Number 1, what are the techniques used in the thriller genre? Number 2, what are the usual conventions of a thriller? And number 3, what iconography is usually found in a thriller film? So, a thriller usually entails certain techniques to create suspense and excitement for a viewer. This could include the use of low-key lighting, claustrophobic proxemics, eerie music, silence, heightened diegetic sound, close-ups, tilt shots, and high and low angle shots. So what are the usual conventions of a thriller? Common conventions used in thriller films include a protagonist that is usually immoral but has good intentions, unjust societies, isolated places such as a wood or a small house, and an antagonist with bad intentions, usually fighting against the protagonist. So what iconography is usually found in a thriller film? Things such as dark clothing, guns, aliens, spirits are all usually found in a thriller film. Example and comparison. In this section of the video, I'll be talking about how my opening sequence conforms to or challenges the thriller conventions. This next clip is from the 2008 hit No Country for Old Men. In this clip, Josh Brolin's character, Llewellyn, discovers a tracker that has been hidden within a stack of money. Llewellyn is being hunted down by Javier Bardem's character, Anton. This clip creates suspense perfectly. The use of low-key lighting represents danger and creates an eerie atmosphere within the scene. In the making of my opening title, Crusade, we used a similar amount of low-key lighting when filming our boss scene. In this scene, the use of low-key lighting created a sense of mysticism around our boss and gave her a sense of power. Another way that the scene from No Country for Old Men created suspense is through the use of zoom-in close-up shots. This created a sense of isolation and vulnerability around Llewellyn. We also used close-up shots for the same effect during the priest apprehension scene. The close-ups emphasised the fear on the priest's face, making him look trapped and isolated. As discussed before, this is another common convention found in thriller films. Another way that the scene from No Country for Old Men creates suspense is through the use of heightened diegetic sound. Listen closely to this next clip and look out the heightened diegetic sound. The sounds of the phone ringing, the phone dialing, the creak of the floorboards, Llewellyn's footsteps, Llewellyn crouching down, and the light switch are all heightened. This creates huge amounts of suspense because the sounds contrast against the silent background. Now look and listen closely to this clip from Crusade, and look out for the same things. The sounds of heavy breathing and leaves crunching under running feet are heightened to emphasise the sense of panic in this scene. The priest's dialogue of the Lord's Prayer is also heightened to achieve the same effect. However, we decided to use eerie music to create a sense of evil and suspense. This is one thing that the scene from No Country for Old Men did not use. Jumping forward now to the chase scene in No Country for Old Men, the aesthetics of the scene remain the same, the low-key lighting and the shots. However, our chase scene in Crusade is quite different. For our chase scene, we shot during the day, and it was quite sunny, therefore the lighting was high-key. Even though both clips are different here, they both achieve the same goal. In both, No Country for Old Men and Crusade, a heightened level of tensity and suspense is kept throughout. In the making of Crusade, we wanted to contrast the different lighting between the priest scenes and the boss scene. We wanted this to show a difference of status. To achieve this, we also used high and low angle shots. Conventions of thriller opening sequences. This part of the video is split into 5 specific sections. The conventions of titles in a thriller opening sequence, the introduction of setting and locations in a thriller opening sequence, the introduction of time in a thriller opening sequence, the exposition of narrative in a thriller opening sequence, and the introduction of characters and soundtrack in a thriller opening sequence. The typical conventions of a thriller opening title sequence include dark style fonts that contrast in colour against an often tense or scary backdrop. Crusade, however, does not use such conventions. We decided to use a simple, Century Gothic font in white against a solid black title board. We used this to step away from normal conventions and to keep simplicity. Most opening titles vary in how they present locations. Some choose to establish location within the opening sequence, whereas others choose to just have an animated sequence. For Crusade, we decided to establish location within the very first shot, a wooded area. There are several ways to introduce time in a thriller opening sequence. Time can be introduced in the form of night or day. For Crusade, we shot during the day and gave a clear introduction of time. Time can also be introduced through costume based on era. Our opening sequence was set in the present day, so therefore, all of our costumes were fairly modern. Some thriller opening titles purposefully choose not to reveal much in terms of narrative. This is done to keep a sense of mysticism for a film. However, exposition of the narrative was a very important aspect for us in the filming of Crusade. It was easily possible for our narrative to be misinterpreted in a number of ways, so we attempted to expose the narrative as clearly as possible. This was vital because the opening sequence was meant to set up the narrative of the entire film. Finally, for the introduction of characters and soundtrack, the majority of thriller opening sequences choose to refrain from introducing key characters in opening sequences. Usually the opening titles involve a piece of action that does not include a key character, but instead creates a question like, why did that happen? This is usually shown with a piece of music that reappears throughout the film. We included several of these conventions in our opening sequence. The priest is not a key character in the film and is being hunted down. This creates the question as to why. We used a voiceover to try and make sense of the fact that the apprehension of the priest is the doing of a religious cult. This was shot and combined with the eerie music to create suspense. Representation in Crusade. In this part of the video, I'll be talking about representation in my opening sequence Crusade. As a group, we focused on 2 key areas of representation: gender and religion. With gender becoming a more and more topical issue in today's society, we as a group wanted to step away from male-dominant social norms. The characters of power and status have throughout the years in film been presented as male, to the point where a female-dominant role was almost unheard of. However, over recent years we have seen more and more powerful female characters and villains. Originally, Crusade was planned to be a fully male cast. However, in a brainstorming session, we came up with the idea of experimenting with the use of a female boss. As we can see, this ultimately became a reality, and in my personal opinion, was the best decision we made in the planning and pre-production of Crusade. I think this was such an important decision, because social normalities have confined female characters to a specific damsel in distress role. In retrospect, I would have liked to have used more female roles in Crusade as well. A clear example of a male power dominance could be this scene from The Godfather. The entirety of the cast in this scene are male. In fact, out of the 33 of the key cast credits in The Godfather, only 8 are female. This is a clear indication of past male dominance in the film industry, especially in films that include powerful figureheads. To end on a positive note, there has been a rapid and incredible surge in female roles in the film industry over recent years, and I hope this continues far into the future. Religion was another point of representation that we as a group decided to play with. Throughout Crusade, the boss's voiceover talks about how modern or old religion has been led astray by the forces of evil. One could view this opinion as extremist, and this was a particular character trait that we wanted our boss to have. However, these irrational statements are hypocritical, because while she is talking, a priest is being brutally hunted down and murdered. This shows a sense of immorality, creating the idea of fighting evil with evil. Therefore, religion is certainly not presented as a positive thing in Crusade. The narrative and dialogue forces the viewer to question who is actually in the right: the history of typical religion, or the new reformed version of extremist religion. This is again another topical issue in modern society.